Hi, Melody. Thanks for coming in today. I'm Avery, the hiring manager for the project coordinator position. Did you have any trouble finding the office?
Hello, Avery. It's great to meet you. No trouble at all. The directions were very clear. Thanks for asking.
Excellent. Well, we're glad to have you here. The plan for today is to spend about 45 minutes getting to know you and your experience a little better. I'll ask you some questions about your background, and then I'll leave plenty of time for you to ask any questions you might have for me. Does that sound good?
Yes, that sounds perfect.
Great. To start, could you walk me through your resume and tell me a bit about yourself?
Of course, I graduated from the University of British Columbia with a degree in business administration. For the past 3 years, I've worked as a project assistant at Innovate Corp, where I supported senior project managers on a variety of tech implementations. I was responsible for tracking project timelines, coordinating with stakeholders, and preparing status reports. I was particularly proud of my work on the Nexus project, where I helped streamline our reporting process, saving the team about 5 hours per week. I'm now looking to take the next step in my career and take on more responsibility as a project coordinator. And this role at your company really stood out to me because of your focus on sustainable technology, which is a passion of mine.
Part 2, behavioral questions. That's great to hear, Melody. Your experience sounds very relevant. Let's dive into some specific examples. Can you tell me about a time you managed the project with a particularly tight deadline?
Certainly. In my previous role, we were tasked with launching a new software update for a key client. 2 weeks before the deadline, the client requested a significant feature change that wasn't in the original scope. The task was to incorporate this change without pushing back the launch date. My action was to first break down the new request into smaller, manageable tasks. I then organized a meeting with the development team to assess feasibility and reprioritize our sprint backlog. I created a revised project plan with an accelerated timeline and clearly defined milestones. I also made sure to maintain daily communication with both the client and our internal team to manage expectations and report progress. The result was that we successfully integrated the new feature and delivered the project on time, and the client was extremely satisfied with our flexibility and responsiveness. It taught me the importance of clear communication and agile planning under pressure.
That's a fantastic example of handling scope creep and pressure. Now, tell me about a time you had to work with a difficult colleague or stakeholder.
I can think of a situation where a colleague from another department and I had very different ideas about the direction of a marketing campaign we were collaborating on. They were focused purely on creative aspects, while I was responsible for ensuring we stayed on budget and met our performance metrics. Our initial meetings were quite tense. To resolve this, I scheduled a one-on-one meeting with them to understand their perspective better, away from the pressure of a group setting. I used active listening to hear their goals and concerns. We found common ground in our shared desire for the campaign to be a success. We agreed on a compromise. We would allocate a small portion of the budget to test their more creative ideas on a smaller scale, while the main campaign followed a more data-driven approach. As a result, not only did our working relationship improve significantly, but the campaign itself was very successful. We even discovered from the test that one of their creative ideas had a surprisingly high engagement rate, which we incorporated into future projects.
It sounds like you handled that with a great deal of emotional intelligence. One more behavioral question. Describe a time when you had to learn a new tool or software quickly for a project.
Absolutely. When I first joined my last company, the team was transitioning from using a basic spreadsheet system for project tracking to a much more complex software, Asana. I had never used it before and was expected to be proficient within my first month. I took the initiative to complete all of Asana's official online tutorials over my first weekend. I also identified a senior team member who was an expert in the software and asked if I could shadow them for 30 minutes to see their workflow. Finally, I created a small personal project within Asana to practice using its features. By the end of my first 2 weeks, I was not only comfortable using the tool for my own tasks, but I was also able to help onboard another new hire. This experience reinforced my belief in proactive, hands-on learning.
Part 3. Situational questions. Very impressive. Now for a couple of hypothetical questions. Imagine you were assigned a high-priority task, but the instructions you receive are vague and incomplete. What would you do?
My first step would be to carefully review the instructions and identify the specific areas that are unclear. I would then formulate precise questions to get the clarification I need. I would approach the person who assigned the task, likely my manager, with my list of questions and explain that I want to ensure I deliver exactly what is expected. If they were unavailable, I'd check if there's any existing documentation or a colleague who has worked on a similar task who might be able to provide context. The goal is to gather all necessary information before investing significant time to avoid rework and ensure the task is done correctly and efficiently from the start.
That's a very methodical approach. Now, let's say you've delivered a project to a client, but they express that they are unhappy with the final result. How would you manage that situation?
In that scenario, my immediate priority would be to listen. I would schedule a call or meeting with the client to let them voice their concerns without interruption. I would listen with empathy to fully understand what aspects of the project didn't meet their expectations. I would then apologize that the result was not what they had hoped for and reassure them that my goal is to make it right. After gathering all the details, I would analyze the gap between their expectations and the deliverable. I would then propose a clear action plan with concrete steps to address their feedback, along with a realistic timeline. Throughout the process, I would maintain transparent communication to rebuild their trust. The ultimate goal is not just to fix the project, but to repair and strengthen the client relationship.
Part 4. The candidate's questions. Thank you, Melody. Those were all my questions. Now, what questions do you have for me about the role, the team, or the company?
Thank you. I do have a few questions. First, could you describe what a typical week would look like for the person in this project coordinator role?
Of course, a typical week would involve a mix of activities. You'd likely start Monday with a team meeting to set priorities for the week. About 40% of your time would be spent on core coordination tasks, updating project plans, tracking budgets, and scheduling meetings. Another 40% would be communication focused, liaising with different departments like engineering and marketing, and preparing status updates for stakeholders. The remaining 20% would be more dynamic, often involving problem solving for any issues that arise, or assisting the senior project manager with strategic planning.
That sounds like a great balance of tasks. My next question is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for the person taking on this role in the first 3 months?
That's a great question. The biggest challenge will likely be getting up to speed with our internal processes and the number of stakeholders involved in our key projects. We're a fast-growing company, so things move quickly. The successful candidate will need to be a fast learner and be proactive in building relationships across different teams. However, we have a very supportive team and a solid onboarding process to help with that transition.
That's good to know. And my final question is about the team culture. How would you describe the working dynamic within the project management team?
Our team is highly collaborative. We have an open door policy and everyone is encouraged to share ideas, regardless of their role. We value transparency and hold weekly check-ins to discuss not just our successes, but also our challenges and what we can learn from them. We work hard, but we also believe in maintaining a healthy work-life balance. We're a group that supports each other to achieve our collective goals.
Thank you, Avery. That gives me a much clearer picture, and it sounds like a fantastic environment to work in. You've answered all my questions.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure speaking with you today, Melody. We have a few more candidates to interview this week. Our plan is to make a decision by the middle of next week, and our HR department will be in touch with you regarding the next steps, regardless of the outcome.
I appreciate you letting me know the timeline. Thank you again for your time. I really enjoyed our conversation and am very excited about this opportunity.
You too. Have a great rest of your day.
You as well. Goodbye.